What did I say? Didn't I say it? I remember specifically saying it. I only said 3 things in the build-up to this AFCON final. The first was that Senegal will be best placed to score on the counter-attack. And the one who is going to want to exploit the counter-attack is going to want to be Senegal. This isn't a Senegal team that's going to launch a counter-attack and take 6-7 passes to get to the opposition goal. They can do it in 2. The second thing I said is that the team who wins will be the team who protects their ball better in the second third. And where did Senegal win the ball back from in order to launch that counter-attack after the 90th minute? In the opposition second third. And then the last thing I said is that this is going to be a fantastic game. And it was. So let's get into it because there is a lot to speak about, obviously. I'm going to be speaking predominantly about the quality of the game. And there will be other factors to touch on, which I'm sure we will get into. And we're going to speak to somebody who was actually at the game to tell us everything that we might not have seen on the television cameras. That's the kind of coverage you will get here on the African Contingent, the show that gives Africa a voice. My name is Michael Steinbeck. Now, as far as an advertisement for African football goes, the 2025 AFCON final will go down as a mixed bag. On one hand, fantastic football was played. Throughout the 90, 120, 130 minutes that it was played, fantastic football was on display on the pitch. I mean, wingers were attacking and expressing themselves, and line-cutting passes were being played from the midfield, and defenses were really sitting back with absolute discipline, getting back to where they need to be, getting into formation, and keeping each other effectively from penetrating the opposition boxes. One might say that there could have been a little bit of quality lacking in the final third, but I don't particularly see it that way. I think the misses that happened in that game were not shockingly horrific misses. Some balls went a little bit wide, some shots were scuffed here and there, but for the most part, it was the goalkeepers, and in particular Bono, who kept that game at 0-0 for as long as it was. The other person who I want to give a lot of credit to, and this is not a take that you're going to find on the rest of the internet, this is a take you're going to get only here on the African Contingent. The referee, Jean-Jacques Ndala, I think he was terrific. And as a matter of fact, if I could give the Man of the Match award, I would give it to him. First and foremost, he officiated that game terrifically for the first 91, 92 minutes. And then when the controversy kicked off later on, he was calm, he was collected, he stood his ground. Look, do I think it was a perfect performance? No, but there are very few perfect performances by referees in modern football. The one thing I do think is that if you replay that game 100 times for 100 different referees from all around the world, 90 out of 100 referees probably officiate that game worse. There was a lot of crowd trouble from what I've heard from people who were at the game that impacted quite significantly on what we saw happening on the field. So with the resources he had at his disposal, I thought Jean-Jacques Ndala did a fantastic job, and I think the campaign to discredit him is a little bit shameful. A little bit shameful because a lot of it is coming from Africans. But we are speaking about an African referee 6 months out from a World Cup who is refereeing an AFCON final. This was an audition for Jean-Jacques Ndala, and I think he passed. So, let's speak about the decisions, shall we? There were 2 major decisions very, very late on in the match, and these are the 2 decisions that everybody is speaking about today. I think it's a shame because it was a fantastic game of football, but I would be remiss if we go through this entire conversation without mentioning them. The first one was what everybody is calling Senegal's disallowed goal. Senegal did not have a disallowed goal in the 2025 AFCON final. They put the ball in the back of the net late on in the game, after the 90th minute, I think it was the 92nd minute, after the whistle had been blown. Okay, so at this point, it is impossible to even assume that the referee had any knowledge that that was ever going to lead to a goal, because he blew that whistle before the ball even came off the crossbar. Now, do I think it was the right decision? I actually don't. No, I think it was a soft foul to give. But from the referee's perspective, I can see why he looked at a tussle happening over there to his left, saw Hakimi go down, and thought that potentially that might require a free kick in Morocco's favor. I don't think it was necessary for VAR to get involved. I'm not even sure if it would have been within the rules for VAR to get involved, because it did not even come close to reaching the red card threshold. And it was a free kick in favor of the defensive team, not a penalty shout in favor of the defensive team. So let's throw away the discussion of VAR immediately and just assess the decision for what it is. Was it correct? I don't think it was, but I think it was entirely fair, A. And B, I also think it's really important that we stop referring to that incident as a disallowed goal, because that feeds into the narrative against Jean-Jacques Ndala that I think is really unhealthy for African football. The second decision that a lot of people are criticizing is the penalty that was eventually taken by Diaz. Now, I'm not going to speak about the Diaz penalty because I think the kid will be feeling bad enough as it is, and with the entire internet coming down on him, he doesn't need one other random voice in South Africa criticizing him. But with regard to the decision, again, entirely fair. That's going to be a penalty 9 times out of 10 in 9 leagues out of 10 all around the world. There is a lot that happened off the camera in that match that we, who were not at the game, did not have the privilege to see, but is slowly coming into light over the hours and days following the game. Somebody I know who was present at the game is a veteran now of 2 AFCONs and 3 African Continental Senior Championship tournaments. And that is Nigerian photographer Michael Adegbile. Michael, please, for those of us who weren't fortunate enough to be in Rabat on Sunday night, tell us, what actually happened?
I think there were lots of things happening at the same time, and that's what makes it more chaotic. I feel like for people that were watching at home, watching on TV, the broadcasters could probably have done a bit of work in trying to hide how far gone people's head were in the final. So probably just showing the on-field activities, showing the coaches arguing. What they would not show you though is the fans trying to encroach the pitch, the fans whistling, Moroccan fans and Senegalese fans clashing, the ball boys clashing with the reserve goalkeeper, the Moroccan player trying to, prevent the reserve goalkeeper from getting the towel of Edouard Mendy. So there was a whole lot that was going on at the same time. So towards the ending of the game, we knew it was going to start getting tension because there were no goals and we were starting to look towards extra time. So nobody would have expected that in the last 8 minutes that were added to the regulation time, that much drama was going to happen. I've not been able to watch the highlights, so I don't know how much people saw on TV, the stoppages, the fights, how much was broadcasted to the TV stations, because I know they try to censor a lot of things. But for we in the stadium, what we saw was really, really chaotic, and it was really an absolute disgrace.
So then, Michael, would it be fair to say that a lot of the disruption late on in that game was due more to the fan trouble than it was to the trouble taking place on the pitch?
Yeah. So obviously, when you're playing against the host nation, it's very expected that the away team would not have as much fans, as the home team. We saw that the home advantage has played a lot to Morocco's hands in this tournament. Lots of whistling, booing, giving a goal to the fans. But the Senegalese fans, though they were limited in number, were very vocal also during the game. So they had been having a bit of go, the stewards, in the stands against the Senegalese fans because of the old back and forth of trying to take Edouard Mendy's towel, the reserve goalkeeper of Senegal trying to protect the towel. Hakimi, at a point, also took the towel to the suggestion of the fans, of the Moroccan fans. They told him to pick the towel. He picked the towel, and there's a video circulating online where Ashraf Hakimi himself picked up the towel and threw it out. And a Senegalese player ran outside to get the towel back. So there's been that little back and forth between the Moroccan fans, the Senegal fans, as well as the stewards, and then the ball boys. Ball boys were supposed to be, attending to the balls. They also made it a point of duty for them to be trying to get the towel of Edward Mendy, which I still do not understand. When things got a bit heated, Ibrahim Diaz made sure that nobody continued play. So in the moment of protesting, he rallied the fans, rallied the players as well to make sure that the ref went for a VAR check. So things started getting off in the VAR box. In the point where the referee was going to check the VAR, backroom staffs of both Senegal and Morocco started clashing right there and then because they were starting to talk to the referees about. I think there's also a video online where Gana Gueye, which is the captain of Senegal, was telling the referee to, I think it was pointing to God and then pointing to eyes to say, God sees all, and something of sorts. So you could see that was where it started to go off in the VAR check, crowded from both sides, right? There was some pushing, there was some shoving in there. So at that point, things had also started to go off right there behind, right? So Senegal fans, in the process of trying to protect their Mendes, towel, had also started to have a go at the stewards. Then some fans were now starting to encroach into the pitch, trying to gain access to the pitch. So that was when things started to go off on the fans' angle. I'm very sure the TV will not have shown that. So the fans started to encroach the pitch. Fans started to encroach the pitch. Stewards were there. So because heading into that regulation time, stewards had surrounded the entire pitch, right? So there's a steward for at least every angle of the pitch, protecting the fans from encroaching because things have started to get tension. So the Senegalese fans started to get access to the pitch. The stewards were having a go back at them. A fight ensued at the Senegalese end of things, right? The Senegalese fans started to go, and then it became real bloody and messy at that point on.
For those of us watching on television, it would appear that Sadio Mane was the hero who saved the 2025 AFCON final. His decision not to leave the pitch in all the chaos, effectively acting as the captain in the absence of Koulibaly and in the absence of Idrissa Gueye, who, to be honest, I'm not too sure where he was during all that commotion. But we know that Sadio Mane did not leave the pitch other than to run into the change room and usher his teammates back onto the field of play so that Diaz could take the penalty and the game could move along. From your perspective at the game, watching this all unfold, should Sadio Mane receive all the plaudits that he is getting today for saving the 2025 AFCON final?
Yeah, I think when all of this old scuffle was going on, I just knew for a fact that Sadio Mane wasn't going to go inside the box with them because, he's a professional player. He's one of the faces of African football. He's won the CAF African Player of the Year. I mean, at a point, I knew they were going to return back to the pitch. But obviously, Sadio Mane played a very big role in that because even before the players went in, the coach spoke to him. And I think it was really reluctant to let the players go in. But I think he just had to succumb to the coach's order as well as the other players because you could see there was a distinct reaction. There was a distinct reaction between what the players wanted, what the coach wanted, and what Sadio Mane wanted. So you could see them trying to appeal to Sadio Mane to let them take that decision to walk off. I mean, even Gana Gueye at the point was very angry, and also wanted the game to end. But Sadio Mane stood his ground, though very angry, was just very concerned and speaking to the referee about it, but he never at the point left the pitch, except when he went to speak to El Hadji Diouf, as well as maybe some other dignitaries that spoke to him. And, while watching, I just knew that I don't think Sadio Mane would have left, to be honest. So, yes, if he's labeled as the hero, I mean, he was named as the man of the competition. Obviously, I mean, he has after this is his last AFCON, I don't think he would have wanted to end on such a sour note of them not completing an AFCON final when the world was watching. So obviously, I just knew that, it deserves all of the heroes awards that's coming to him. And I know there's still more to come. I mean, I envisage at the Ballon d'Or is probably giving a sportsmanship award or one of those other things, because yeah, what he did yesterday was really really heroic for his nation as well as for Africa as a whole.
Thank you so much for your time, Michael Adegbile. I really appreciate you chatting with us on the African contingent. Now, look, I watch a lot of sport. All right, in South Africa, there are effectively three major sports that we pay a lot of attention to above all else, and that is football, rugby, and cricket. Now, football might be a little bit behind in this regard, but in rugby and cricket, the role of the captain is sacrosanct. The captain in rugby and cricket is almost above the coach. That's who you listen to. You don't push back against your captain for anything in the world. Certainly not in cricket, and definitely not in rugby either. In that regard, football is a little bit different. People push back against their captain all the time. People argue against their captain. It happens in plain sight on the field of play in front of the cameras, and that's the sort of thing that never, ever, ever, ever happens in some other team sporting codes. There were two men in terms of the hierarchy of the Senegalese national men's team who were above Sadio Mane at the AFCON final. The first was Koulibaly, who is the regular captain who was suspended for the match and pulled a little bit of a John Terry towards the end, lifted the trophy in his full kit, but okay, we'll ignore that. The other was Idrissa Gueye, who was the stand-in captain for the match against Morocco. Both of those men, with regard to the hierarchy of the team, should come above Sadio Mane. But Sadio Mane stood so much taller than everybody else that I think every little bit of praise that he is getting this morning is entirely deserved. But the main takeaway for me, other than the fact that the top end of African football is in a really, really strong position right now, is that leadership is something that is ingrained within the great ones among us. And it has nothing to do with an armband. But what Sadio Mane did on Sunday night is exactly what Cristiano would have done. It's exactly what Carlos Puyol would have done. It's exactly what Sia Kolisi would have done. It's exactly what Steven Gerrard would have done. Any of the great leaders who we look at in world football and world sports would have made the same decision that Sadio Mane made on Sunday night, except they would have had the responsibility and the weight of the armband to push them to do it. Sadio Mane didn't need that. But I also applaud Morocco for staging an incredible tournament. I applaud the referee from the DRC, Jean-Jacques Ndalo, for officiating a terrific game, and I applaud his team. I applaud the apologies that were made after the game. But effectively, I don't think we could have asked for a much better send-off to this tournament. 10, 15, 20 minutes of chaos does not, for me, ruin an entire month of terrific football, organization, and wonderful fan engagement. Thank you to CAF, thank you to Morocco, and thank you to you for watching the African Contingent.